Okay, Commissioner Blunt? I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Williston City Council Charter Review Workshop. It is Tuesday, June 28th at 6 p.m. And Ms. Wright, if you will call the roll, I'll appreciate it.
Microphones, please.
Oh, sorry.
Mayor Goodman,
I am here.
Council President Jones,
Here.
Vice President Robinson. Here. Councilmember Cox.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
City Manager Jesse Gorman.
Here.
City Clerk Latricia Wright. Here. Attorney Kirsten Ballou.
Here.
Deputy City Manager Gina Nelson.
Here.
And all other staff.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We will stand at this time for the opening prayer and the pledge of allegiance.
Lord, we come together tonight, and we want to take a few moments just to thank you for the grace that you show us, for the grace that you show our city. And Lord, I just ask you to continue to bless this city as we move forward, as we try to make decisions, as we try to work together to make the right decisions for our people. And Lord, I ask you to be with the police department and the fire department, Lord, as they are out there risking their lives and serving others. And Lord, I ask you to be with our government. It's a difficult job it is to govern a country like ours. But I thank you for everything that you do. And I thank you, Lord, that we live in the United States of America. I ask everything in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to start tonight with item number 1, Introduction to Charter Review by Attorney Kirsten Ballou. The floor is yours.
So we're going to have I will talk to you after this presentation by Lynn. She's going to kind of run through the basics. Essentially, we're here for a charter review. You're going to take a look at your existing charter, see if there's anything you'd like to change, add, delete, etc. Lynn's going to talk you kind of through that process, some information that you'll like to know, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the legality part of it afterwards and the process that we're going to go through tonight.
Okay, we do have with us tonight Ms. Lynn Tipton from the Florida League of Cities. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and you've got the floor.
Hold on just.
Hold on one second, if you will. Hold on one second.
Hold on a second.
Hold on.
You jumped ahead of me here.
She can hear you, maybe.
We gotta get it out of here. Hold on. Now you should be good.
Aaron,
There we
did
go.
we get switched over to the right sound?
Yep,
Can
you're
everybody
good.
hear me?
You're good.
Yes? Okay, great. Well, good evening, Council President and members of the Council, Mr. Mayor, very nice to see all of you, and I appreciate the invitation. I am going to hit share screen so that the PowerPoint comes up, and hopefully that won't be a technical glitch. Here we go. There we go. All right. Usually the Florida League of Cities role in this, and I should, for the purposes of the folks that are there at your meeting, let folks know that the League is the voluntary membership association for all 411 municipal governments in Florida. This year is our 100th birthday, and we're very proud of that, our 100th anniversary. When it comes to this charter information, we share this as part of our educational program, and the League in no way would ever direct the city on what to do. It's actually in our bylaws that we cannot direct the actions of a city, so this is an educational process and sharing for us. In Florida, every municipality has a charter, and if you've lived in other states where municipalities did not have charters, that can either be due to their state constitution or state law. However, in Florida, we all have them, and they are all wonderfully, wonderfully unique. It is meant to be your document's broad framework. We occasionally run into cities, either cities, towns, or villages that have put something very specific into a charter, and of course that means in order to change it, it has to go to referendum for their citizenry. So we do like reminding, especially for the public's benefit, that this is meant to be a broad framework. The city puts its details into both the ordinances that it passes, which are its laws, and they put it into the policies and procedures that guide the day-to-day administration of the city. There should obviously be a preamble as to explaining why the city is coming together. There's always an explanation for the elections, the chain of command, fiscal authority. These are usually 8 to 10 pages once you subtract out the meets and bounds description of the city. It is definitely meant to be the short, like a constitution, foundational document for every municipality in Florida. Usually there is a charter review committee appointed by mayor and council. Sometimes it is very small as 3 members, depending on the size of the city council itself. I've seen them also be very large for cities that have a larger council. The Model City Charter points out that, and this is a document that was started in the 1890s by Teddy Roosevelt when they were trying to break apart the political machine in New York City called Tammany Hall. It was at that time that the first Model City Charter was written, and the reason that we point to it is that educationally it's one of the oldest documents in American municipal government. It is common to have a committee so that there is citizen engagement as well as citizen input and then buy-in on the other end when this is ready to go to ballot. Not every city has a set time for when the Charter Review Committee will meet. Some do have it specified in their charter that it will be every 10th year, every 20th year. Other times it's left at the council's discretion to call it into being. There are a handful of cities, and this is definitely the minority, where it's a permanent standing committee, but it's only appointed at those times when it is needed. So again, a wide variety in how the committees exist themselves. There's normally a back-end deadline related to the ballot. So for example, there's a 1-year window in which we can get things ready for an amendment if any turn out to be necessary, and then the document goes onto the ballot for voter consideration. So in working backwards from that timetable, I will say that it's common for it to be 6 months and longer. I do see some that are able to get it done within 3 months to 6 months, but it means an awful lot of committee meetings for the Charter Review Committee itself. And less than that time period often results in an issue being delayed or not taken to the ballot because there's insufficient time. These are the usual table of contents. They're not all completely identical, but for over 100 years, cities have been following this type of an outline. And again, because it's meant to be a broad framework, we don't tend to see more sections than this. So one of the biggest points of consideration, especially under Florida law, the entire council or commission, regardless of which term is used, is required to be elected. There can be vacancies for which a person fills in an appointed capacity, but they are holding temporarily a seat that is known to the public to be an elected seat. And in looking at that, we see councils in Florida as small as 3, and at the other end of the spectrum is Jacksonville with 19 on the city council. You do have to remember that Jacksonville is both a city and a county as a consolidated government, so it's definitely the largest. 5s and 7s are much more common numbers, and we do have the occasional 6-member councils as well. Usually with 6, you're looking at a non-voting mayor or a mayor that votes only in the cases of a tie when there is not a full quorum. In terms of the term itself, as few as 2 years and as many as 4, but Florida also has a number of cities that serve 3-year terms. Because when government is created through compromise, you often get folks that will say 2 years is too few and 4 is too many, and they're happier with 3. So Florida's got a bit of a split there between 2s, 3s, and 4s. The way that the council is elected is also a popular topic of conversation among the public. You can be all at large. You can be elected within single-member districts. Some cities mix both at-large and single-member districts. And then the third way is what we call a seated council, which is that you run within a district, but everyone in the entire city is eligible to vote for all of those districts. So we see a variety. In addition, there are 3 ways to select the position of mayor, although out of 411, not every city has a mayor. We have a couple of cities that use council president or council chair, and there is no mayor. But for the mayor, they can be elected at large. They can be elected by the council from within the seated council members, or they can be on a rotational basis, that is seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, however the process might be spelled out, in true rotation, but not election. So those are the ways that we see mayors being elected. The forms of government, and we do have some hybrids that defy being placed into any category. What came over from Great Britain is council weak mayor, and when I use weak and strong, I am not talking about the mayor's personality. What we are talking about is the charter and the powers and duties that are ascribed to that position. Council with a weak mayor means that all department directors report directly to the mayor and council. There is no central administrative position or manager. So the water director, the police chief, the fire chief, everybody reports directly to the council. It is tough when the council is part-time to have full-time supervision for these departments. And so you will find that these are in Florida smaller cities, usually with a population of 25,000 or less. In the council strong mayor form, which the 6 largest cities in Florida all have this, that's Jacksonville, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, St. Petersburg, and Hialeah. This form of government, it's an elected executive where the mayor is full-time by charter and is tasked with hiring and firing all staff, preparing agenda items for the council, usually not voting with the council, and being the full-time paid administrator for the city to implement the actions of the city council or commission. I say commission, we do use those terms interchangeably. There was once a very popular form of government called the commission form, which is best represented by Gotham in the Batman comics, where each commissioner is also over 1 or more departments: a water commissioner, a police commissioner, a fire commissioner, a Parks and Rec commissioner. Well, again, being part-time, it was very hard for these folks to run departments in a full-time capacity, and this form of government has largely gone away in the state of Florida. This leaves then the council manager form, which is the most prevalent. It is about 280 to about 285 out of the 411. And it usually includes that the manager is the appointed day-to-day administrator for all city departments, that the manager hires and fires all staff, prepares the budget, and presents the council with options and research on their various agenda items. I mentioned that we have hybrids because if you add these numbers up, you're not going to get to 411. The important thing to remember with the form is that the form worked well for the individual municipality, not that it fit in a box for a political scientist to count. And that's why we do see so many variations in the city charters. It may make them hard to count, but realistically, every city's got to be able to live with the form of government that they choose, and so it really comes down to what is best administered for each individual municipality. A couple of notes on some of the departments. We do have cities where certain departments are identified in the charter, which would mean it would take a charter amendment to change or eliminate a department. This can often include the utilities, police, and fire. We also have the issue of charter officers, which for every city usually includes an attorney and a clerk. If the city is the council manager form of government, it will include the manager. We do have a handful of cities where the manager is not in the charter but appears by ordinance, so we do have that variation on it. Spending a minute on the comparisons, in the material that I sent to your clerk last week, we prepared a chart just to give some basic comparisons for cities slightly larger, 3 larger and 3 smaller, so that you've got a scope of 7. This slide happens to be a summary of what is on the next page, but in pulling from these, I made sure that we were not looking very coastal, more inland. And you can see that through just a population comparison, there is a mix in the form as well as in the sizes of the council. And, you know, they see it's just a jumping off place. If you found that you wanted to compare these charters on a line-by-line or section-by-section basis, this would at least get you within a similar framework. The comparison we always make is that we want a city, or it's recommended that a city use a fruit salad perspective, that no 2 cities can ever be the same exactly, so you're not going to get an apple to an apple comparison. Maybe you'll get an apple to an orange. This list could get you there, and then based on the services and scope of work for the area, for each jurisdiction, you could then focus on the best of the apple to orange comparisons. And you just want to make sure you don't leave the realm of fruit salad and start working on anything other than apples to oranges. So some of the best practices that come across for charter review committees are to consider the appointment of people to get a broad spectrum across the municipal population for service on the charter review committee itself, making sure that in the discussion that there are several public forums at various times of day, so that anyone, for example, is not bound by limitations related to work or whatever, and that they can participate. In using the city's website, in this day and age, it is much simpler to share charter-related information than it was in a pre-computer era. And I've been at the league 31 years and remember the first 2 charter reviews that we did without computers. And boy, I'll tell you, it's just so much easier to give it its own page, for example, on the website, to include not only the Charter Review Committee's minutes, but also their proposal discussions, research that's been done, links to the Model City Charter information, and links to the Charter Library that is maintained by the Municipal Code Corporation. Those kinds of things can really help with civic engagement. It can also help your public to become more comfortable and familiar with the vocabulary that goes along with charters and charter review. If you do wind up having things that need to go onto the ballot, it can be especially helpful to talk through in a question and answer kind of session. This is what Article 1 is proposed, and here's what the changes would mean. Here's Article 2, here's Article 3. That kind of Q&A can be very helpful in a public forum for your voters and your residents. If you've got groups in your area, for example, a Kiwanis group or a Rotary Club that would want to host a discussion related to the charter ahead of a ballot initiative, that can also be helpful. One of the things the attorneys are always telling me is that less is more when it comes to charters, and that cities end up writing themselves into a box when they put too much into their charters. And we have had a few in my time of where a city gave identical powers to both, for example, a mayor and a city manager, and then had a power-related dispute. So you want to be very careful when writing up the powers, duties, responsibilities, and authorities that are contained within the charter. And the last point really is just the issue of watching to be careful that when it comes to the council and its elections, you speak broadly, because there are cities that have put qualifying dates and deadlines, for example, into a charter, and then it's constantly having to be updated by the voters as they move forward in time. So, you know, there are things that you can do by ordinance with regard to that that don't have to be in the charter, and your attorney can advise you the best way to do that. These are some of the questions I'm usually asked in terms of the form of government, and also the time periods in a 10 to 20 year cycle, for example. We often see built-in charter review periods that occur in the 10th, 15th, and 20th year. We do have a number of cities that don't speak to a specific year, but simply say upon either the request of the citizens or by the inclination of the council itself. And you see the notice there on the more prevalent form of government for not only Florida, but also for the United States. Some things to consider from the Model City Charter, and if your clerk has made this available, these are just notes that as they've moved into the 9th edition of it, these are things that they find come up in community discussions all across the United States. And I want to make sure that I leave time to see if you have any questions. This slide does include links to not only the National Civic League, but also to the Municipal Code Corporation's library, which is Florida specific with this address. You select Florida off the map. And if you did want more Pier City information, Wade in our Tallahassee office or myself, we're both available to work with you on making those tier comparisons. And with that, Mr. Mayor and Council President Jones, I will just pause and see if you all have any questions.
Anybody have questions for Lynn at this time? That's a wonderful overview. It gives us a place to start. And we do appreciate you spending your time with us today. Hopefully you'll hang out. If you hear us doing anything, you direct us back in the right direction. Okay. Back to Kirsten.
All right. We're going to discuss your charter tonight. I'm sure you all know that. There are a couple of things that we can do tonight and a couple of things that we can't do. I'm just going to kind of outline those so that we stay within the bounds of where we are. One, keep in mind you have an ordinance pending which is changing your election dates, your qualifying dates that was already approved by the council. So that's all going to be done by ordinance so that it's not going on the ballot for referendum, right? So that is something that we are allowed to do under Florida statute, is to change those via ordinance instead of referendum. So just keep that in mind during this process, so that there will be some of those changes, and when we get to that section, I'll let you know what the new language is going to look like, just so you can have an idea of it. The second thing that we can't do is, if you take a look at your charter, there is an Appendix A. Your Appendix A essentially lays out what is part of the city and what is not part of the city. We can't change that during this process. So anything that it has not been annexed or anything that's not been contracted, we can't change any of that relationship. If there's something
Darren, if you can still hear me, I can no longer hear, so I'm not sure if I got any questions.
How about that?
Okay, great.
We did not have any immediate questions.
All right, well, I'm here and available. Your clerk knows how to reach me, or anyone else from the city. Feel free to reach out, and in fact, that is my last slide. My contact information is there with the clerk, and I'll just wish you the very best in your process, and please let us know if we can be of assistance in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Are we good, Erin? Okay. So no changing boundaries of the city during this process. The way that this is going to work, essentially, is you all can pick how you want to go through this. A lot of the time, what we see is we'll take section by section. We'll go through and review what's in there, see if there's anything that anyone thinks should be changed, edited, deleted, added, etc. And when I say anyone, I mean for the council members as well as the public. So if anyone from the public has some suggestions for changes that they'd like to see to the city charter, this meeting is a great opportunity to do that and present that to your council members. And they'll be able to have discussions about that with you as well in this format. Then often what happens is after we go through all of the articles, you'll find maybe we want to add an article because we feel maybe there's something that we haven't addressed, we feel we should. And then that's something that we can take, I think, at the end, the best part, after we've gone through everything that we already have changed and edited and made it look the way we want it to look. To clarify, my role, much like our last presenter, is to as to how other cities do this, the metes and bounds of the law, so to speak, but not to tell you what to do, what should or should not be in your charter. That's completely up to you. If you ask me questions as far as am I familiar with how or what other cities do, perfectly happy to give you that information, but obviously the changes to your charter will be up to you. So when we get to the changes, the procedural posture of that is going to be similar to the following. Someone will present an idea, we'll discuss it, the public will discuss it, everyone will understand where we are. If we all agree that this is something that we would like to put on the ballot referendum, what I'll do is I will put together an ordinance that lays out the language of the change. There is a slight difference. So Kim Burton, the supervisor of elections for Alachua County, her policy is that the changes have to be in a yes/no format. So we can't just do this is what the charter is going to look like now. It has to be each individual change which will be voted on. I'm not sure what Tammy Jones's policy is.
That's what we've done in the past, is each individual one.
Okay.
With just like a very short sentence or paragraph under it.
So essentially, something to keep in mind is that ballot language among municipal attorneys is considered something more of an art than a science. Because what you have to do is you have to word it in a way that it can be a vote for yes is for the ordinance or for the charter change, and a vote no is against the charter change. And sometimes that can be challenging depending on what it is we're going to do. So when I bring you back that ordinance, it's going to show you exactly what is going to be on your ballot. And that's going to be copy-pasted by Tammy Jones, and she's going to put that on the ballot. So you'll have an opportunity when I bring you that ordinance, you'll vote on the ordinance again, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page with all the charter amendments that we want to make. And then that will go on the ballot. Your citizens will vote, and only the changes that are approved by a majority of the voters in that election will be made to your charter. Does anyone have any questions as far as that goes?
I have a question.
Mr. Fuller,
Will this,
if you will, please come, sorry.
Albert Fuller, Williston. Wanted to know if this is actually going on the county's ballot or is it going on the city's ballot? Because Tammy won't have anything to do with the city's ballot, other than assisting.
Right, so it will go on the city's ballot, is the answer to your question. Sometimes the supervisors have a preference as to how the cities lay out as far as their interpretation of the law on that issue.
Okay, thank you.
She will definitely advise us of what the language is. Any other questions at this point? Okay, carry on. It's just me making all this noise. Turn me down.
So what I have already done in advance of this meeting is I've gone through and I've looked at all of your charter provisions, and all of them seem to be in keeping with the law. There is one slight, I'm not going to say that it's not in keeping, but it's not the exact wording that we use anymore, so when we get there I'm going to advise you of that as well. You don't have to change it, but it'll just be something that I let you know of. But everything else is in accordance with Florida statute, so there's nothing that's in there that I think has to be changed legally in order to be in compliance with current federal and state law. The other thing that I've done is I've spoken to Scott as well. So he has also reviewed your charter, just so you're all aware, and he is in agreement with me that none of the provisions are in violation of any statute currently. We did talk about that one little thing and when we get there. So my recommendation as far as going forward, and again, you can do it however you want, but my recommendation would be to take each article, each section at a time, everyone discuss if there's anything that anyone feels needs to be changed, and we'll kind of go through it that way. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We can have more than one meeting. We don't have to get through the whole thing tonight. No one should feel rushed or like they can't say what they need to say because there's not enough time or there's pressure to do one thing or the other. So we can, it's a marathon. So don't hurt yourself. And that is all of the advice I have to give right now, but I'm obviously available for any questions. So if you want to just take section by section or however you all want to proceed.
Okay, is there anybody good with going section by section? It's just quickly go along. Okay.
Stuck on here, hopefully it's not gonna make noise again. Make it safe. That's me, I know. Hold on. Let me find my clipping. All right. Now you can't hear me at all. Article 1 is the corporate existence, boundaries, and powers. Is everybody okay with me just doing it this way? I'm starting at the very, okay, section 1.01, corporate existence. I don't know if you want me to read it. You probably don't want me to read this whole thing. It just states that we are the city of Williston in Levy County, Florida, and were previously created by the Florida legislature and shall continue as a municipal corporation. And that this is our charter for the city. 1.02 is the boundaries. That is the Appendix A that Ms. Ballou was referring to earlier. It is your page 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Oh, no, I'm not reading it. Thank you for the suggestion. It's pages 7 through 12 are all the boundaries of the city limits. Everybody okay with that? Mr. Williams?
Good evening. My name is Dwayne Williams, and I'm an assistant here in Williston. Pertaining to section 1.02, the boundaries, and I did hear the attorney. I would like to address the state law referencing municipalities annexation.
It's not appropriate at this time.
Not appropriate?
Not if you're talking about annexation. We're here for charter review.
Well, I'm talking about the process of annexation, because in this here, it says
Not on
that
our agenda.
it should follow the process of Florida State Statute 171. I want to just address the process, not annexation. I want to talk about the process.
Anybody want to speak about process of annexation at the moment? I don't think it's appropriate for this agenda, but I want everybody else's opinion, please.
Well, I think any information that this citizen has should be heard within reason. That's my opinion.
Okay, it's at 8:00, Mr. Mills. If we hear that it's not pertaining to charter review.
I'm not even sure if I know what the question is at this point.
Exactly.
I know what he said
Well,
was.
The charter states that when you're dealing with annexation, it has to, right here is in accordance with Florida Statute 171, okay? And I would like to ask the council or the committee about looking at that to possibly revise that,
The state law.
the process. You don't have to follow this though.
Well, that's not up for question tonight. That's not.
Well, this is a part of the charter, it has to be, if it's going to be amended, it has to be done according to doing the charter process.
I
charter
think
review.
it's the only way we could do it is by Florida statute. Okay.
Florida statute does govern the annexation and contraction of municipal boundaries.
So the municipality can't make any changes or deviations from that?
Not from the process outlined in the Florida statute, no.
Okay. So, would the statute say that the municipality may, start the process of annexation? It can't be something that say that they're required to start it if you meet a certain condition according to the statute?
I'm still not even sure if I know what the question is at this point, and I apologize.
Well, the Florida State statute says that the municipality may, if certain things occur, go forward with the process of annexation, may. And I'm asking, is there a way that, I think you get it now.
I understand what you're saying now, yes. So when the statute says that the the municipality may go forward with the process, it means that even if it talks about criteria, certain things happen, you're saying? Even if all those things happen, the city doesn't have to annex, the city doesn't have to contract. It may do so, but if it does do so, it must follow the process laid out in the Florida
So
statute.
there's nothing can be done to be added to the charter to automatically, kickstart that?
Correct.
Okay.
And I will say there's two types of annexation, I know you know this, I'm just stating it for the public, that there's voluntary annexation, and then there's annexation where the city goes out and tries to do annexation, that would have to be put on a referendum. If somebody wanted to be annexed, which is sort of what I hear you saying, not exactly, but if somebody feels like that they need to be annexed, then they could approach the city anytime for voluntary annexation.
Well, my intent or purpose in bringing this up is because we have some areas that's, highly dense areas, they're urban areas, right adjacent to the city. And historically, they have not been considered to be annexed into the city. And I think it's time we have a different conversation. You know, we're in 2022 now. And I think that it's time to maybe consider things that we hadn't considered in the past. And due to the density of these areas, and they're urban areas. And
I can't think of any urban areas in that territory, but maybe.
well, right here,
I mean, your definition of urban might be different than mine.
on the east side of town. The city limits only goes on the north side to the middle school road.
Right, I realize that.
And then you have an urban area that's there.
We have a neighborhood, I don't call them urban.
Well,
Urban to me
my
is
district
city.
and may be different than yours,
Yeah.
but it's a highly dense area. The city is now providing services into that area, and I don't understand why we can't have a conversation about annexation of those areas.
Those people can bring us a voluntary annexation, and we would definitely consider it.
And I was
They
just
can do
asking,
that
is there a
anytime.
way that the city could start the process, have something where it kick-started based upon the density of an area or something of that nature?
We could, yes, sir. I think if we approach a community, or, what am I trying to say, a neighborhood, let's call it a neighborhood,
Mhm.
that we wanted to annex, and we've done that before,
Mhm.
in all honesty. We've been to neighborhoods before and asked them if they wanted to annex, and we've caused a riot,
I don't know if any riots are in Wilson, but it would be something to be considered.
because they don't want to be on the city limits.
Well, I think that's an assumption until we go out and talk to people individually or take a poll, we won't really know.
Well, all those things are currently in process, there's nothing we need to change to do that.
I just think the council would be better served if they would consider, like I said, some type of way of doing annexation. Right now, you provide services in these areas, and they're not annexed, and to me, that's a form of taxation without representation. And I think the vegetables of racism is time now we move beyond certain things because we're in a different place now. And that's just my opinion.
And as I said before, they can voluntarily come and be annexed anytime they want to.
Well, historically, people have felt a certain way. They have felt that they're not a part of the city. They felt that they don't necessarily, people that don't want them to be a part of the city. And I just think that it could be helpful if the city can make a good faith effort to let people know that they would welcome them.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Okay, anything else reference boundaries? Okay, under section 1, Mr. Fuller, if you will.
Comment. I actually think what Mr. Williams was talking about is, if we look at charters like the city of Gainesville, they have a formula where when one area gets to be to a certain density, that triggers a debate between the county and the city. And if there's something in your charter that causes that conversation to start, then you have a place in your charter where you're actually moving in that direction, rather than say, well, we're gonna wait till the citizens figure that out. Well, if we would just look, and hopefully tonight is not the only night that we meet on this, because I think we probably need to look at other charters and look at a process whereby where we can begin to trigger, the city itself begin to trigger conversations that start annexation when a community reaches a certain density, and basically all that needs to happen is just a small bit of language in that section which speaks to triggers for annexation.
Thank you.
I will clarify a point on that briefly. Mr. Fuller is correct. I don't know if I misunderstood the first set of questions. We can't deviate from Chapter 171, but we could include in our charter, like Gainesville and many other large cities have, a provision which kickstarts us into 171. We just can't change 171. So I apologize if I misunderstood your original question, but that is the case.
And I don't think it would go under the boundaries section. It would be an additional.
It would be in a different section,
yeah.
but I definitely.
That's one of those new sections we would have to do if we wanted to do that.
Correct, it would be a new section. The boundaries right now.
Because the boundary is the boundary. Whatever that happens to be at the time. Okay, I did make a note to look at triggers for annexation language. So we'll try to find some peer cities that have such language. And y'all need to see if there are people that in your neighborhoods that you think might want, I know you're in, Mr. Fuller's in as well. If there are other neighborhoods, if there are other neighborhoods that you think might want to come in, I don't know if they do. I know people that are on my end of town, on the other end of town, they don't want in at all. So if the other sides, north, south, east, and west, if they want in, that's excellent to hear. Because I know people not this direction in the northwest, they don't want in. I've talked to people on the other end of my street, they don't want in at all. They're happy just like they are. They have the benefits of the city, but they don't have to pay city taxes, so they don't have to be governed by city permit department and all that other sort of stuff, so.
If I could chime in just for a second.
Yes, ma'am,
You
please
just have to
do.
be careful if you're gonna go through the process of getting a petition for annexation. There's a lot of rules that apply. You can't create enclaves, you gotta be contiguous, and
Oh, yeah.
that's the stuff that
Yeah.
that takes time to review.
Sure.
So staff could help with that, to help lead you through if that's what you want to do, as to the do's and don'ts of annexation. So-
And it's not that we're against it, it's just I'm not thinking this is the place for it. A new provision might be, or simply an ordinance that triggers it. That's okay. Yeah, appreciate it, and we'll look up the language. All right, section 1.03, powers. The city should have all governmental, corporate, and proprietary powers possible for municipalities to have under the Constitution and laws of the state of Florida, as though they were specifically enumerated in this charter to enable to conduct municipal government, perform municipal functions, and render municipal services. And the city may exercise any power for municipal purposes except as expressly prohibited by law or this charter. And that's coming from a reference, Florida Statute 166.021. Any comments there from anyone? Okay, shall we move on? They get shorter, I hope. Section 1.04, construction. The powers of the city shall be construed liberally in favor of the city, limited only by the Constitution, general and special law of the state of Florida, and specific limitations in this charter. And that's the end of Article 1. Did we make it past Article 1? So excited. Okay. All right, Article 2. Yeah, we do. Yeah, and we're 45 minutes in here. Article 2, we are going to take a break in a minute. Article 2, City, Council, and Mayor. Section 2.01, Composition and Eligibility. Composition, there shall be a city council consisting of 5 members and the mayor, all elected by the qualified voters of the city at large. Eligibility. Only the qualified electors who have resided continuously in the city for at least 1 year immediately prior to qualifying shall be eligible to qualify for the office of mayor or city council. Stop right there. Mr. Langston.
Hello, my name is Mike Langston, business owner, resident of Williston. All right, so this question of eligibility popped up a couple years ago with me. I was doing some research into it, but there was no charter review at the time. But since I guess this has opened up, maybe we can look into it. Where does the eligibility come from? Like, what state rule says that you have to live in the city limits?
Florida Constitution.
Does the Constitution actually say that? Because I looked at the various charters, and there's two different ways they usually go about indicating who is eligible for a council or mayor position.
So, I'm not familiar with the Florida Constitution provision. I do know that there are specific definitions in Florida statute of eligibility for municipal office, as well as for eligibility for municipal elections. I can't quote them off the top of my head, but if that's something that you'd like me to look into, I certainly can.
Okay. I can tell you that I attended a Florida League of Cities conference probably 12 years ago now. And I specifically attended a workshop on this issue. And I specifically stopped after the class and asked them, why is it that a business owner who owns property in the city limits of the city of Williston cannot run for office or vote? And they told me it was against the Florida State Constitution. That's where I get my answer.
Yeah, so then, I guess since we are doing a charter review, could you look into, say, that an individual who meets certain criteria to put the question to the citizens to allow for a business owner who, say, owns property and has a Williston address? Because it's not just, this is the conversation that's happening below, within the business community about underrepresentation, right? It's not like a riot in the street, but it's still, everything that you guys decide on directly influences the business, which is a large portion of the tax revenue that comes into the city. So having a voice would be, something I think that would be.
Would it be possible for you to give me the information on that particular statute that says that what you're saying is correct?
She said she would.
I'm asking her.
Yes.
Excuse me?
I would appreciate it.
I can send an email to anyone who would like one regarding the statute.
I'm specifically asking.
Absolutely.
Shall I talk now? Are you still talking?
Are you talking to me?
I am.
Do not be rude.
I'm not. You're the one who's rude.
I'm at the mic, guys. I'm still up here.
And she got on Yes,
We're
Mr.
done.
Lawson, you got something else?
All right, yeah, that's it. That'd be cool to see, what that looks like.
Yes, thank you. All right, so anything else on section 2.01? We're moving into section 2.02, which is election and terms. Don't forget the spring if you got something you want to change. Candidates for city council shall file and qualify in one of 5 groups designated as A, B, C, D, and E. 1 council member group A, B, C, D, 2 terms, biannually thereafter. I don't think I need to read all that, you can see it. And again, 1 council member for the opposite ones to be held for the same 2 years, biannually thereafter. Each present council member shall hold office for the term in which he was elected. The mayor of the city shall hold office for a term of 2 years, beginning on the 2nd Tuesday of April after his election. The office of the mayor shall be filed at the general election and to be held on the 1st Tuesday in March in even numbered years. This is part of what we need to change, right?
And that March
Yeah.
language will be changed in the ordinance as per your discussions and your vote with Ms. Jones.
And the Tuesday after April,
Correct.
that part, the whole part. Okay.
Should councilman be changed to councilperson?
Doesn't hurt my feelings. To me, it's generic. I don't care.
Or just counselor,
True. I'm fine with it the way it is. I don't know. You have any feeling about that, Councilman Robinson? I mean, I don't call her Councilwoman Robinson, I call her Councilman Robinson.
I for myself.
So, I'm fine with it,
I'm good.
unless y'all just have a partiality to it.
I will speak up here. I do agree that language which has been suggested is somewhat archaic, and counselor is non-gender language that certainly is a reasonable change in these days. So that's my suggestion that you consider. It's a simple change from councilman. You don't have to go to council person. Counselor defines the position. That.
Is anybody else in agreement with that, or you wanna leave it like it is?
I'm good.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. HR person. She's gonna be generally good for us here.
You reading in 03 or 04?
2 clicks.
I'm still in O2.
Two
I'm
clicks.
still in
2
O2.
clicks. You have to click it
Oh,
two
no,
times.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm still in O2. Must have dead batteries.
Just so that we're in line with the diversity of different council members, so whether, depending on how they categorize themselves,
I see the word.
we definitely want to make sure that we change that to maybe just say council, to be a part of the council.
How about council member?
Well, you can say council member as well, but you just want to make sure that moving forward, that you're thinking forward when it comes to diversity and inclusion of different people and how they see themselves.
Yes, but I like council member too. I just
Yeah.
think,
I like council member.
I'm fine with council member. It gets the gender question out of the church.
Okay, bring it back to us with council member. And all those, I guess in every place in the whole charter. Okay. Now we're moving to section 2.03. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
Looking at this entire section, I have a little bit of a problem with it. Particularly where we have, at this point, the opportunity for 5 council people to live next door to each other. And honestly, that does not serve the entire community. Now, what I'm proposing, because see, what we're looking at, the mayor used archaic just a little while ago, but it's not archaic. This was 1979, and it ignores the diversity of the community. And the fact is that we need to look at how is it that we ensure that the entire community is represented rather than certain segments of the community. And so what I'm looking at is a proposal to change the council itself. And the council itself still made up of 5 members. But those 5 members should be, and this is the proposal, that there should be 3 single-member districts. And that will take care of the entire Williston, and then 2 at-large members. And the total will still be 5, but at least we know that the concerns of each community is at least brought to the council.
Why would you do 3, Albert, instead of 4, where there's 4 quadrants up there? Just asking.
Well, in terms of, we do need probably 2 at-large, 1 elected each year. And Williston isn't so large that the people in those, I'm starting to call them quadrants, but they're not quadrants.
Well, they are quadrants.
Well, you're calling
Areas.
quadrants, but I'm not dividing into 4 areas, but 3.
Yeah, well, to me, there's northwest, southwest, southeast, northeast.
Yeah, if you're going directionally, yes,
May I ask a question?
yes.
In your thought process, or,
But they, yeah.
sorry, may I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Do I have to ask you?
You
that
should,
one
yes,
question?
sir.
Okay, may I ask you a
Yes,
question?
you can.
Thank you very much. May I ask you a question?
Yes.
In your thought process of this proposal, when you say at large, is your thought process that they will be nominated at large but voted on by the entire city, as was one of the scenarios that were shown in our video?
Well, when you're saying qualify
Nominated, you're
at
For
large,
certain areas, but voted on by the entire city.
voted on by the entire city.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that that's what was on your mind.
And the other 3 voted on by the people that they represent.
You lost me there.
No.
A single-member district would be a district wherein the people in that district vote on that person, not the entire city.
That's what I was trying to get out of you.
Yes. So the at-large people voted on by the entire city. The people in that district should be able to say, well, you know, that person represents us well, or that person represents us poorly. I couldn't see that person until it's time to be elected again. I think that there should be some method of making sure that the people's interests are heard.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing Mr. Siegel's hand up back here.
Yes, ma'am, just a suggestion. You said we wanted to break it up into quadrants, just for simplicity. Why not add a 6th member to the council, so you have 4, 1 for each quadrant represented, and then 2 at-large, as Mr. Fuller is
Because you
suggesting.
usually try to do odd numbers.
Right, I understand the premise of that, but we could also have that language to where the mayor could be the tie-breaking vote if the council were tied at 3-3. He doesn't want that responsibility, I see.
Okay, thank you for your suggestion. Okay.
But, and I'm thinking break it up by numbers of voters, not by just sections of the city.
Okay.
The math, may I speak?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We're having discussion. You
The
can
math.
speak anytime you want to.
Thank you. The math seems very difficult for me to follow. And
Yeah.
frankly, I have problems with having council members that are elected by just a portion of the city instead of the other. I like the ideas that you're presenting, but the implementation, it seems to me that the same process can be done by having your quadrants, your areas, your neighborhoods, whatever you choose to call them, be the qualifying area. So you have to live in that area to qualify, but the entire city gets to vote on you. And it seems to me that accomplishes what you want, which is to get representation from around the city, because you have to live in that area in order to qualify for that area. That is another method that they talked about, and it is a viable effort. I see your point. It is very reasonable. I'm not sure we're ready for it, but I think it's a very reasonable, well thought out approach, if that's what you're talking about.
That's pretty much what I'm talking about, except that if they are single-member districts, then the council person from that district is accountable to the people who live in that district.
Right.
And if they're voted on by just those people, then they are indeed accountable.
And only someone living in that district can run against someone living in that
That
district.
is exactly correct.
Well, they would all be accountable, is what he's saying.
Ma'am?
I said, that's what you're saying, they would all be accountable.
That's what I'm trying to say. I may not be saying it
No,
well,
you
but
are,
that's what I'm trying to say.
you are, I agree with you.
So that gives you what you're suggesting. I'm not sure if the council is wanting to do that, but it gives representation where there is no representation, and it simply does that by qualifying places. You have to live within a certain area to even qualify for that seat. So somebody else from a different area can't run against you. So the voters have to choose from the qualified candidates within that district. It is a common method. Is that correct, Mrs. Cruz?
There are many cities that use similar methods.
Yes. So it is I think it's a well thought out thing. It's important to look at it carefully.
Okay, let us discuss it,
Yes,
if you will.
I'll be quiet.
Let us, no, not you. Let us discuss it. Sure.
Us is in who?
Huh, us. Let us discuss it.
Oh, you mean after the meeting?
No,
No.
we can't do that. If you
No,
have,
well,
if you
I'm
have
saying
your
at the
time,
next council
your
meeting,
time
but
is
not-
up, your time is up, let us
My
discuss
time
it.
is up.
Okay, so let's have some discussion on that issue from the council member.
That's a great, I love that idea. However, when I ran, I came in, I filled somebody else's shoes. Somebody else left the seat, I filled that seat. The next time I ran unopposed. Nobody was interested in running. It's hard to get people to run. I believe that happened to you as well, Mike. We live in the same neighborhood, so one of us would have to go, according to, yes.
No, that does not mean that either.
Yes, it does.
With at-large seats, then you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have to go.
That's
Oh, well, at large seat, correct. Okay, gotcha.
With the 3 and 2.
Right.
Right.
Not a 4.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was 3 and 2.
I can tell you, I'm not interested in doing it unless it's 4 and 1. Because we have 4 quadrants. I don't think we could just draw a line somewhere that wasn't one of those quadrants.
I believe in the quadrants.
I really do, and that's what I feel, if we're gonna do it, I think it needs to be quadrants with 1 at large.
So what do you do if somebody don't run out of that quadrant and it's just empty?
What a great question.
Exactly, good question.
What I was
And
gonna say.
that would happen.
Because that happens a lot. I know in years past, we've had 3 and 4 from the same quadrant. Just because that's the way it was.
That's the way I understand it, there's not a lot of people, gnawing at the bit to get up here and do this.
Yeah.
But across the city. Not just here, planning and zoning and all the different boards.
Yeah.
It seems like as years go by, people wanna get less involved.
I don't know, I've heard people
Well, I
want
wanna
to
take it
run
pretty
micro.
Yeah. And I've heard it both ways too. I know most, like the county has, you have to live in that district, but everybody, the whole county votes on everybody. And that's what Mr. Goodman's saying.
Yes, ma'am.
And I agree with that. I don't think that just that one area should vote. If not, you're kind of going to be competing with each other.
Exactly.
So,
And
may-
fighting for things that are just one district.
Exactly.
Just go ahead.
is it possible that we could do your quadrants? And if nobody qualifies from the district, have it as an at-large seat if nobody in that district then chooses to qualify that position? And still have it given the opportunity? And if no one takes the opportunity, we can go, it automatically converts to an at-large seat?
I'm looking at you,
So am I.
There are, like I said, there are many cities which run by the single member district. I'm positive that there are a range of ways that they resolve the issue of what happens if someone from a particular district does not run. I'm not familiar with them off the top of my head, but I can bring back to you those different solutions at our next meeting.
I think most small cities don't do it by single member districts because they do have problems getting people to run.
You're not
working.
I don't think we have.
So,
Well, no, I just think you could be in the city in the long run. You get, there might be, 2 great people in one particular area that has to run against each other, and there might be, and I'm not, picking out anything, but there might be another area that don't have somebody as strong, that the city, if the city can vote on every single person, which they would go to vote, but if you're the only one in that district and no one's running against you, then that automatically puts you in.
It does.
When there could be somebody better in another district. And I know that there is two at large, but maybe those are already filled. It could be hurting the city in a way.
It is a crapshoot. I have to agree with you.
My question would be, if we're gonna do it by population, should we not do it by the number of voters?
I wouldn't do it by population, I'd do it by quadrant.
By boundaries.
The population moves, I mean, we're getting ready to add 98 houses over here.
Yeah, we got our 4 main roads, I mean, I think you
I
were
usually
just.
divide the northwest into 3 sections.
Right.
By itself. We've got 4 main roads, and I think they're all well populated.
I had not considered, Councilor Bullock, what you just said. What, if you do have a poorly qualified person, he automatically gets in simply because he's in a district, and because he's the only one. It's a risk. It's a risk. Yes, you are.
Right, we're here to.
So the
help.
question and the risk is, what is more important? That you have a less qualified counselor, or that all the citizens feel that they are getting a chance to be represented in the council by someone in their area? I don't know the answer.
Well, the way we have it right now, anybody can run, so then
Anybody
the same
can.
people can run right now and can get voted in at the
You're
next election
that is
against
correct. That is
anybody
correct.
that's up. So the way I see it is go and run the election and get on the thing.
I understand.
As we
I
are,
agree.
as we are now.
As we are now, without making any changes.
Say, leave it alone.
And if there's a district that wants to get included, I can't tell you how many times I've said, get out and run.
Exactly, yes, sir.
Become a candidate.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to do it district by district, get involved.
And whoever does run, they gotta remember, the city's a business. We gotta run that as such.
I understand.
Yeah, sometimes we can't run it with our heart. We have to run it with our head. Because that's what businesses are. Mr. Langston?
Look at eligibility, there's a whole business community that can run
Yeah,
a business.
I know that they're not gonna let us do it, please. Wayne, you got something else to add?
I just think it's a crapshoot anyway. I mean, when you say you may get representation better from a certain part of town, we don't know that until people are elected.
Right.
So we can't just assume that's the case. And I think it also, would not only have representation, but it would eliminate having 4 or 5 people from one particular neighborhood or part of town. If you're not gonna consider that, then maybe you could consider something like, residential districts or something, to keep from having 4 or 5 people, or 3 people, or 2 people from the same neighborhood. But, as far as the crapshoot thing, that could happen anytime with any person that's elected to the council that may not be qualified.
The thing is, you have to get the people.
You have to get them.
Well, and doing it this way, you may find that it may have an encouragement to some people to run that may feel like they don't stand a chance trying to.
But the way the model is now, they can run now. They can
Yeah,
run
but
in the
they,
next
I
election
think,
against anybody.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is.
And they don't have to wait 2 years to do it. They
If
can
you
do it
go to some type of district, it may give an encouragement to somebody in that area who may think they stand a honest chance to win to run that.
But if it's still voting at large for the whole city, it's still gonna be the same thing.
Well,
And
I hear you, but if you have somebody that's from that district, then it may be that person is elected by the entire city, which I hear you, but they will represent that district. And to your point, if somebody else.
They have to represent the whole city.
Well, I mean,
That's
they
the
will be,
whole problem.
no, they will be represented from that district, I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Now,
I'll take
in
that.
saying that, okay, back to the point, if nobody else challenges them, how different is that when, councilperson, a member.
That's gonna be hard to remember.
Councilor Robinson ran unopposed, how is it different?
Well,
If somebody's unopposed, that's.
I take it, and I know everybody says to me, you didn't have to run. Well, I take that as a compliment. Some people do, some people don't. When nobody runs against me, I take that as a compliment.
I applaud,
Not that, the fact that nobody did it.
But the person.
Because they had every opportunity to do it.
Say if you went with the idea like Mayor Goodman suggested, and no one in that district ran, then it could be at large. If one person qualified to run, and nobody else qualified to run against them, then by default, they would be, counselor,
Never.
yeah. I don't see it no different than, someone not challenging a particular person. I mean, I just want to address the fact that, you know, when he, Mr. Bullock here used the fact that, you know, we may not have a qualified person. We don't know that when we elect people.
Oh, yeah, we do. Usually I do. I bet my people.
You are better than all of me, at least. I don't know about the rest of them.
If somebody's running, I go find out about them.
Yeah, but, I mean, when we found out, what we gauge people on? We gauge people on what? I mean, oftentimes we don't ask people for experiences. We don't know what a person, you know, like a, you know, usually it's somebody's family member, somebody who's from Williston for years and this and that. I'm just saying, I don't see often where people
I
really.
can tell you, there's 2 people sitting here who are born in Williston, the rest of them are not.
Well, but I'm talking about real credentials. You know, we don't usually get down into those areas with real credentials, that this person was an accountant at this office for so many years, and he did this, and he managed so much money, or this and that. I don't usually hear that. Good. That's enough.
If you go to,
You're lucky to get people to
the
run.
rallies, you'll hear it, because people will tell you about it. Who did I see? Mr. Fuller put us on there.
You're lucky to get people
And I'm afraid we're rehashing something we've already stated, but you got just a few minutes, not 5.
The only thing you have to do is qualify, say, $29.
Well, now it's more than $29.
I agree.
think it's 54.
That's all it takes.
You all gave me the floor.
Say that again.
You all gave me the floor.
I didn't hear that.
You all gave me the floor.
I did give you the floor, yes.
Okay. The only thing I wanted to say is that actually don't have the ability to say once a person when a person is running. What made you more qualified than a person who doesn't speak up?
I'm sure we do. We can ask them. We can have rallies. We had just one here Friday night.
You have rallies or whatever.
That's the way you learn.
We get various people that could run for office. Popularity wins the race, not qualification.
Who can do a budget, who can run the city, who can understand the legalese of it.
And unfortunately, that's only part of the job.
Well, it's a great part of it, a great part of the job.
Probably less than 50% of the job. The other part is having a heart, having compassion for the people you govern. And that has to be considered.
I help people
So
every
how
day,
in the
however,
world,
they have a
how in
right.
the world do you say qualification?
All right, thank you very much. And I'm seeing Mr. Siegel, if you still got your hand up. Sure.
My only point was gonna be for the comments that the mayor and, Councilman Bullock were having a discussion on with, as it pertains to not having a qualified candidate within a specific district. That's not really a whole lot of difference between not having a qualified candidate for seat A, B, C, D, or E. You know, we can put those things in place to make it where it will be an at-large seat or whatever it is. But, you know, let's say, you know, seat A and seat C are open, and 2 really good people run for seat A, but, you know, there's not another person for C, and C just gets re-elected arbitrarily. Yeah, that's kind of the same premise. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be limiting your scope in that fact just by providing the city with districts. You wouldn't be cutting your own throat in that way, because the qualification issue is still, you know, it's an issue of who's being put against who, and how the seats are coming up and how the seats are ordered. So I think that would be more of a responsibility of the city proper on getting the word out to advertise that these things are coming up, and really getting the community more involved in the qualification process and getting more candidates qualified than, you know, the onesie-twosies that we have every now and then. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way to any of the sitting council members or the mayor.
Point taken. All right. Ms. Fuller, you're heading for your mic.
I will note that while I'm not familiar with the intricacies there are significant, limits on how district boundaries can be drawn. And so that is something that we would need to look at. I'm not sure that it can be as simple as draw it on this line, draw it on this line. I think that there are a lot of requirements for that. A lot of cities, when they do draw these district lines, get professionals to come in and look at their redistricting. There are a lot of professionals that we work with, Roger Austin, for example, and they do this kind of district drawing analysis. So that is something to keep in mind. I can bring back to you what those regulations are, so you can take a look at them if you'd like, but do keep in mind that I'm not positive that it can be as simple as just divide it into quarters.
Yeah, may I comment on that? Thank you. You're absolutely correct from what I have read about redistricting. Redistricting can become a nightmare into itself. It trying to, as soon as you start districting, you start creating enclaves, you start creating divide, us against them. It's District 1 against District 3, and District 1, you know, and just, you know, it is a dangerous precedent. I feel for what you're trying to do, and I appreciate what you're trying to do. Frankly, I don't have a solution, because every time I come up with a solution, someone brings up a very viable point. And I say, well, maybe my thought process isn't so good. And because with every counter, there's a negative. And our current one, may not be working as well as you or I would like, but as Councilor Bullock, see how this flows off the tongue? Councilor Bullock pointed out, anybody can run. If you're intimidated into not running, get your friends around you and run. Under this current thing, we really don't have anything that inhibits somebody from running. And as soon as you go into districting, that's what starts happening. People are inhibited from running. I like what you're trying to do. I don't see a way to do it.
And as Mr. Mayor Goodman and I were just saying, that if you aren't successful one year, you can just run the next year.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait 2 years.
And
If you
if
were
it-
district, you'd have to wait.
You have to wait two more years before you can try to run again. It's one thing after another.
This next time that, Counselor, see that, Ross, myself, and Counselor Cox is up for reelection. So there'll be 3 empty seats, so bring on your people, bring on your friends, bring on somebody that's interested. I mean, I would love that. When I first ran, when I filled the seat the first time, I couldn't believe nobody else wanted to be on the seat. I was just appalled by it. Nobody was interested. And the next time when I ran, nobody ran against me. I just couldn't understand that whole thing. I was just couldn't believe people were not interested. You need to get interested.
Yeah. And in all honesty, some of you sitting out there, I really expected you to run this last time. I really did. I was shocked that you didn't. I was just, yeah, I'm looking at both of you, actually.
Oh, I was looking at Michael Langston.
Oh, well, I'm looking at Mr. Fuller and Mr.
Mr.
Williams.
Fuller, Mr. Williams.
And Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Brooks.
Because he's been spotting us around here too. Mr. Barber, I saw your hand up.
When people come.
I just want to make a suggestion, that historically, you guys might want to ask the wonderful resources you have with the league about this question, because if you look at the trend in government, the district representation is very, very popular, and over the last 30, 40 years, there's been a transition to at-large where you eliminate the district.
Right.
And I don't think anybody here has the expertise that they would as to, do you know the reasons for that? Is there a reason for those trends? Why is it moving away from district representation? And that might be the answers as to what decision you need to make. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Could I follow up on your suggestion? We all don't wanna call the League of Cities.
Well, no, we want to.
Should the clerk do this for us, so that
If we
she
want
can?
to find out.
Yeah, I mean, rather than all of us go calling them together. I like what you said. I would be interested in knowing that, but I don't wanna be a mass calling. If they decide they wanna do it, we should designate one person to do that.
I'm
Now,
not
I have
hearing,
30 seconds for a response to that.
I'm not hearing anybody say they want to do it.
But this is a workshop, so it's not just the people up there, but it's the people out here as well.
I know that, Albert, we have to make the decision though up here in order to move forward.
I would volunteer to do it.
No, look at Latricia, she knows all the people. If we decide we want to do it.
Oh, I thought you said you had heard no one to volunteer.
No, I said, I haven't heard anybody say they want to do it.
Okay.
Latricia and I will be doing all the calling and
Yeah,
the
thank you.
researching and providing all the information that you asked for. We'll tag team
Okay.
it.
Are we ready to move? And I guess we need to know if there are people who are interested in that.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not hearing that from this body, I did not hear that.
I'm interested in that.
It's not broke, don't fix it.
That's what I'm hearing from the council members.
I think it's broke.
It is the very first time in my entire political career I've ever been outvoted.
That's funny. I get outvoted all the time. You just have to go with it. And we didn't vote.
Why we're
We don't
here.
vote.
I was speaking in jest. I
I knew you
apologize.
were. I knew you were. I had another question, just went. If you call them, I'm gonna leave that up to y'all. If y'all call them, I wanna know how many small cities our size district, because I don't think they do. Because of the difficulty in doing it, number one, and also the difficulty in finding qualified candidates. I think it's difficult for a small city to do that.
If it would please the council, Latricia and I are more than happy to look into this information from you. I think that perhaps what I'm hearing is that we'd like more information before we make a decision on where we want to go, or we've already decided if we've already decided where you want to go, then we won't do the research, but let us know.
Never hurts to get more information, that's something.
I certainly have not decided.
More
Okay.
information will be provided.
We don't push this to the next.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll see it again. We won't even get through the whole thing today, I'm sure. Lord. All right, we're gonna go about another 15 or 20 minutes, we're gonna take a break. Thank you. All right, so we're moving now to section 2.03, council president and vice president. I think I can sum this up without reading this entire paragraph. Somebody tell me if I am wrong. We will elect the council president, we will elect a council vice president. The mayor runs the meeting while we're voting. The president can only hold the office for up to 3 years consecutively. Is there anything else I need to add about that? Or would you like for me to read the whole thing? I think that's in a nutshell what it says. Anybody want to change any of that? That's a good nutshell. Ready to move. All right.
There is another element in
Albert, you should have let me appoint you to this committee.
I probably wouldn't have been appointed.
Oh, yes, you would have.
But look, the one thing that I wanted to just look at in here is the fact that looking at if the mayor is disabled, then the council president ends up with 2 votes.
The mayor doesn't vote.
No, not too bad.
No.
Well, the mayor does vote in terms of a veto.
Okay.
See, I can't tell you how
And
many
so
things
the council, and so the council president then has 2 votes.
No. There's
May I-
only one vote
May I speak?
and a possible veto.
Yes, the veto and the vote are 2 entirely different items.
They are.
The mayor's responsibility and/or right to veto is not constituted as a vote. It is simply a overriding decision that a mayor can make on certain things, and the council can override his veto with a 4/5 majority. So the mayor does not vote, period. He only has the right to look at what the council has done and decide if he wants them to look at it again, or he has grave concerns, but that is not the same thing as a vote.
Yeah, just pushing it
The
back.
only thing I'm saying is that be careful of separation of powers,
Yes, sir.
because there will be none if indeed the council president is also representing the mayor.
Yes.
As to whether or not there is a
Yes.
veto or not or something. And there should be separation of powers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're moving to section 2.04, compensation and expenses. The mayor may determine the monthly salary of the council may
I like it. Yes.
The council may determine the monthly salary of the council member and said salary to be set by ordinance, provided, however, the salary of each council member shall not be more than $400 monthly. The salary of the president of the city council shall not be more than $500 monthly. Council members shall receive their actual and necessary expenses in the performance of their duties of office. The mayor shall receive a monthly salary in the amount determined by the city council. What?
That's what it says.
The mayor shall receive a monthly salary in the amount determined by the city council. The said salary to be set by ordinance, provided, however, the salary of the mayor shall not be more than $500 monthly. There you go. The mayor shall receive his actual and necessary expenses for the performance of the duties of his office.
Just tell me when I can talk.
Anytime it's a discussion.
Okay.
Just don't talk forever.
Would you give me a timer, please?
No, just talk.
Okay. I have a couple of issues here. The first, of course, is what you just seem to just realize is that the council is setting the mayor's salary while the voters are setting everybody else's salary. That's my first issue with this particular section. And I have a more pressing issue. Lord, protect me from myself. This clearly tells me that there is a cap of $500 for the mayor's salary.
Absolutely.
Then why is the check that my wife is depositing $565 every month? More or less.
It shouldn't be, because yours is ACH. Does he not have ACH?
I don't know what ACH is.
An automatic deposit.
Automatic.
Yes, it is, but you're right, she doesn't deposit, I don't do the bookwork, okay? I ask her occasionally, how much was the check? And she has told me a number, I didn't bother to retain it, because I let her do the bookwork. But the amount that is being deposited in my account is more than a $500 check should get. And I appreciate all that money.
It should be $465.
Yeah.
Because that's what mine is, and it's the same as yours.
Taxes.
Because it's the taxes coming out, so.
So if it's $565, I owe you money?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay, so we need to take out this part about this council setting his salary.
Yeah.
I think we do.
I tried, if I may continue, I tried to get a hold of Stephen Bloom to ask him that question. What exactly is the amount that I'm being paid? Because I was told that it was $600, so I was not surprised. And you mentioned it was 500. I looked as I was researching the charter, it said 500. So
I will note that there is also a provision that says that you will receive your actual expenses, so I'm not sure if that's part of your expenses.
no, the actual expenses are a separate item.
That'd be separate.
There is a separate item.
There should be expense reports turned in. Yeah.
But the salary is my concern, because I had mentioned to some other members of the city staff, I said, how can I be making that kind of money? I mean, this isn't something that just occurred to me. It's been a month-long issue, and I was wrestling with my self-worth on bringing it out and losing money.
You texted Stephen? Okay.
I would appreciate it.
It should be $465.
Okay, and tell Stephen if it's $565, I thank you.
It's supposed to be $465.
I don't know.
Oh, I can look up the exact amount.
Can I ask a question while you're looking?
If it has to do with the mayor's salary,
It does have to do with the.
come right up here if you will, sir.
He wants to give me a raise.
I think you do have to pay,
I want
have
the
to
mayor
go
to
to referendum
volunteer
if that's
this
the case.
salary.
Where's the fire chief?
No, the question is, the council does determine the mayor's salary because it's all discussed in council meeting. And the proposal comes here.
It's
Does
a
the mayor propose his own salary?
It went to referendum.
It went to a referendum of the voters,
It
but
was-
this charter does
But where
not
was
say
the
that.
referendum actually initiated?
About 2 years ago.
In here.
Yes.
So the council did propose that.
Not as stated in this paper.
It's the ambiguity in the language is my concern.
The people decide his salary, because it went to referendum.
People just, okay, well, they did.
And they decide their salaries too.
I mean, we make suggestions, it says that it can, the charter did say it could only be over a certain amount of money. And we had to go to referendum to make it different,
That's correct. And I was not here.
and that is the current amount.
Yeah, I was just saying that all of that was determined, started right here in council.
It started here, but it can't go anywhere else until it goes to referendum.
So just a quick clarification, just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
With taxes, $461.75.
That's what I made?
That's what I get.
Oh.
And yours should be the same as mine, $461.75. So you wanna run, I know you do. Which is a whole lot better than the $184 we used to get, so.
I turned my phone off, so I can't even ask my wife what she did.
The charter lays out and this is more for the citizens, I know that not everyone has a copy in front of them. The charter lays out the maximum that the salary is allowed to be monthly. But the actual salary, whatever that would be, say the maximum is $500 in the charter, the salary could be $100 a month, but it's set by ordinance. So those are those proceedings where we have 2 readings of the ordinance and then the council votes on those. So those are the proceedings for how the council's salary is determined under this charter and the mayor's salary is determined under this charter, up to the charter amount.
Well, it went to referendum in order to write the ordinance.
So
That's
it went
the charter
to
stated.
referendum because the charter previously stated that there were much lower maximums.
That is correct.
But the ordinance, you didn't need the charter referendum to set the salary, you needed the charter referendum to increase the maximum so that the ordinance would be in compliance with the charter, if that makes sense.
Yes, it made sense to me. I'm very happy with my $565.
I don't believe you could change it without another referendum.
You can't change the maximum without a referendum, but you
Exactly.
can change the salary without a referendum. You can change the salary by ordinance.
Yeah, we can lower everybody's salary.
Oh, yeah, you could lower it.
We can lower
Right.
everybody's salary.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
There is a thing going on around here that needs to stop.
All right, so did I see somebody else's hand up? Albert, did you have something that you wanted to say?
No, I didn't
Mr.
raise my
Barber?
hand.
Barbara.
I had a legal question. This is section is titled compensation and expenses, but the paragraph only defines expenses and salary. Compensation has a broader viewpoint, so I'm wondering if you guys should change that from compensation to salary. 'Cause, for example, I think you guys qualify for benefits, which would be part of compensation.
We don't.
We don't qualify. I have asked that question a dozen
But
times.
the legal
I would like
definition
to
of
qualify
salary
that,
does
but
not
no relevant.
include benefits. So I mean, if it's gonna just talk about salary, I'm wondering why it says compensation as the
Compensation
title.
Probably because you said that your expenses get paid.
Yes, that
But
is
it
correct.
defines that separately.
If we have legitimate expenses and bring receipts for legitimate purposes, we can get paid for compensation, in addition to the salary. And I would just say Article 2 says city council and mayor, and it's the compensation for them.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you look at the legal definition of salary, it doesn't define benefits. But if you look at the legal definition of compensation, it includes benefits.
He's saying that to change the word compensation to salary.
I'm just asking,
Period.
because to me, compensation means that you're capping your
you're in total compensation at 500, but it's only talking about salary compensated at 400 and 500. Then and compensation also separates itself from expenses as a title.
Right.
So that's why I'm wondering if you're only gonna be talking about salary, why isn't that labeled salary, when the legal definition of compensation could include anything additionally? It prevents anything in the future from being...
I will say, in the past, council members have been able to purchase products from HR, but now they will not let them. So it has possibly changed meanings. So that may be a good point. I don't know if there's a legal definition, Ms. Ballou, that needs to be looked at between, because I mean, compensation is pay, but.
Generally
yeah,
speaking,
same thing.
compensation is more broad than salary. So if we were just talking about salary and there are no other forms of compensation aside from the expenses that are already addressed, we could change the word to salary, and it wouldn't impact something, but like Mr. Barber said, it would more clearly define what we are discussing. Although I will say, in the future, if there were changes to add something else, it would have to go to referendum as well.
Keep it compensation. I just leave it the way it is. Leave it alone. Everybody okay with leaving it the way it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we talking about whole 204, or do we all agree that,
204.
so where it says, where it's determined by the city council, we're just saying it's determined because the city council puts it to a referendum, not that the city council, without any other representation, can change the mayor's salary, which is what I read in this sentence.
The way that I read this is that the mayor will receive a monthly salary in the amount determined by the city council, salary to be set by ordinance. So the city council does, it's under this framework, the city council determines it by putting forth an ordinance which would change it.
Okay.
And voting
Which
on
the
said
mayor would
ordinance.
veto if it lowered it.
Could certainly do that.
That's so funny.
Then you have 5 people.
I love it.
Okay, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good.
4 out of 5. Okay, we're down to section 2.05. Is everybody with us?
Madam President?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can we go ahead and break at this moment?
Okay.
Please.
We will break until, how much, 15 minutes?
July 31st.
15 minutes.
15 minutes, we're gonna be back here at 5 minutes till 8.